Single mom janitor kissed a billionaire to save his life, and then everything changed. Margaret Hayes had been cleaning office buildings for 23 years. Her blonde hair, now streaked with silver, she no longer bothered to hide, was always pulled back in a practical ponytail. At 57, her hands were rough from years of work, but her heart remained tender. She raised her daughter alone after her husband passed when Emma was just 3. Now, Emma was studying nursing across the state, and Margaret couldn't have been prouder. The Sterling Industries building was her last stop every Tuesday and Thursday night. She preferred the quiet hours after everyone left, when she could work in peace and think about the life she'd built from almost nothing. The executive floor was always spotless because hardly anyone used it. Mr. Harrison, Sterling himself, only came in twice a month. They said that Thursday evening started like any other. Margaret pushed her cart down the marble hallway, humming an old melody her mother used to sing. The autumn sun cast long shadows through the floor-ceiling windows. She was looking forward to getting home, making herself a cup of tea, and calling Emma before bed big. She noticed the conference room light was still on. That was unusual. As she approached, she heard a strange sound, like something heavy falling. Her pulse quickened. Margaret pushed open the door. A man in an expensive suit lay collapsed on the floor, his face pale and lips turning blue. His body convulsed slightly. She recognized him from the portrait in the lobby. Harrison Sterling, the 62-year-old founder of the company. He was clutching at his chest, unable to speak, his eyes wide with terror. Margaret dropped to her knees beside him, her training from a Longo first aid course flooding back. She checked for breathing. Nothing. His airway was blocked. She could see his phone on the table above, just out of reach. No time to call for help first. She tilted his head back, cleared his airway, pinched his nose, and pressed her lips to his, breathing life into his lungs. Once, twice, she started chest compressions, counting aloud, her yellow cleaning gloves still on her hands. She gave him 2 more breaths. His chest rose and fell with her efforts. "Come on," she whispered. "Please, come on." Behind her, she heard footsteps. A younger man in a suit burst in, his phone already out. He must have been Harrison's assistant, working late. "I'm calling for help," he shouted, his voice panicked. Margaret didn't stop. Breathe and compress. Breathe and compress. She thought of Emma, of all the times she'd fought to keep going when everything seemed impossible. This man would not die tonight. Not while she could help. After what felt like forever, but was probably only 2 minutes, Harrison gasped. His eyes fluttered open. Confused and disoriented, Margaret sat back, breathing hard, her heart pounding. The assistant was speaking rapidly to emergency services. Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes. They stabilized Harrison, checked his vitals, and prepared him for transport. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, his eyes found Margaret's. He tried to speak, but she shook her head gently. "Rest now," she said softly. "You're going to be all right." The assistant, who introduced himself as David, asked for a name and contact information. Margaret gave it reluctantly. She just wanted to go home, to stop shaking, to process what had just happened. 3 days passed. Margaret tried to put it out of her mind and focus on her work. But on Sunday afternoon, a black car pulled up in front of her small apartment building. A driver in uniform knocked on her door. "Ms. Hayes, Mr. Sterling would like to speak with you if you have time." Margaret's first instinct was to say no. She didn't belong in that world. But something in her, maybe curiosity, maybe something else, made her nod. The car took her to a beautiful home on the hillside, surrounded by oak trees, turning gold and red. Harrison Sterling met her at the door himself, looking healthier but humbled. He was tall with graying dark hair and kind eyes that held a new softness. "Please, come in," he said. "I've been hoping you'd come." They sat in his living room, sunlight streaming through the windows. He poured her coffee with slightly shaking hands. "The doctor said I had a severe allergic reaction," he began. "Something I ate at a business lunch. My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe. If you hadn't found me when you did, if you hadn't known what to do, I wouldn't be here." Margaret stirred her coffee, uncomfortable with his gratitude. "I did what anyone would do, but you did it," Harrison said quietly. "You didn't hesitate. You didn't think about who I was or wasn't. You just helped. Do you know how rare that is?" Over the next hour, they talked. Really talked. Harrison told her about his life, how success had come with a price. 2 divorces, children who barely spoke to him, years spent building an empire while forgetting to build connections. Margaret told him about raising Emma alone, about the pride she took in honest work, about the small joys that made life rich. When Margaret finally stood to leave, Harrison walked her to the door. "Would you consider having dinner with me next week?" he asked. "Not because of what happened, but because I'd like to know you better, if that's all right." Margaret looked at this powerful man who suddenly seemed vulnerable and real. She thought about Emma always telling her she deserved happiness too. She thought about how life sometimes surprises you exactly when you stop looking for surprises. "I'd like that," she said. Their friendship grew slowly, naturally. Harrison learned that wealth meant nothing without kindness. Margaret discovered that letting someone care for her didn't make her weak. They walked in parks, shared quiet dinners, and talked about everything and nothing. When Emma came home for Thanksgiving, she met Harrison. Margaret watched nervously, but Emma hugged her afterward and whispered, "Mom, he looks at you like you're the whole world. That's all I ever wanted for you." On Christmas Eve, as snow began to fall, Harrison took Margaret's weathered hand in his. "You saved my life that night," he said, "but you did more than that. You reminded me what matters. You showed me that real strength isn't about power or money. It's about showing up, doing what's right, and staying true to who you are." Margaret smiled, her eyes bright with tears. "We saved each other," she said. And in that moment, with her hand in his, Margaret understood that sometimes the most extraordinary things begin with the simplest act of human kindness. Sometimes one moment of courage changes everything. Sometimes love finds you not when you're looking for it, but when you're just being who you've always been, showing up, caring for others, and staying true to your heart. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Leave a comment below about a moment when a simple act of kindness changed everything for you. Your stories inspired us all.